Discover the miraculous biblical destiny of Iran, shocking truths revealed in God's sacred plan. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, besieged the city, and the temple was laid waste. Among those taken captive was a young girl named Hadassah, later known as Esther. Raised as an orphan by her older cousin Mordecai, she navigated the ruins of her homeland, now desolate, her people dispersed, and their faith deeply tested as shadows loomed over their existence across foreign lands. Esther grew up during the tumultuous days following the Babylonian exile, her heart anchored in the God of her ancestors. In Persia, she stood adorned in royal finery, yet echoing in her heart was the silent call of her heritage, veiled beneath the elegance of her queenly attire. Whispers of her beauty floated through the lavish banquet halls, where laughter masked the heavy truth. Haman, the king's trusted advisor, was devising a dark plot against her people, sealing a decree that threatened their annihilation. Mordecai, with brow furrowed and spirit deeply troubled, approached Esther. "Do not think that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews," he intoned, his words laced with urgency. "For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" The weight of his words settled upon her as molten metal, fiercely hot and immovable. It pierced her soul, awakening an awareness of the divine purpose entwined with her very existence. As preparations began for her fateful approach to King Ahasuerus, trembling hands steadied by prayer and fasting guided her movements. She commanded her maidservants to prepare delicacies, not just as offerings for the king, but as fragrant symbols of her unwavering faith, the same faith that had once carried her ancestors through the Red Sea, igniting hope amidst despair. "If I perish, I perish," she whispered to herself, her mantra echoing in the stillness, a resolute determination blooming despite fear. Meanwhile, across the vast Persian Empire, the threads of suspense tightened. In Babylon, God's quiet servant, Daniel, continued to rise in favor among kings, interpreting dreams that held visions of nations and destinies found only in God's sovereign hand. His life was a radiant testament, a luminary affirming the Almighty's dominion, reinforcing the connection between Esther's destiny and the broader tapestry of redemption that stretched across time and history. Yet, as the sumptuous banquet was laid, and the pivotal moment approached for Esther to unveil her identity to the king, a question of towering significance overshadowed her. Would she find the courage to reveal her heritage, risk it all for the sake of her people, and embrace her role etched by divine hands? The culmination of faith and action loomed large. Would she step into the divine narrative meant for her, or retreat into silence as darkness threatened her kin? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. The atmosphere crackled with divine tension as Esther prepared to step into the throne room, where the might of the empire lay before her, a tempest of emotions lashing against her heart. Every step she took felt heavy with the weight of her ancestry, each moment pulsing with the possibility of change. It was then that the timeless truth settled deep: God's faithfulness had woven a story that would not be silenced, beckoning her to embrace the destiny set before her. Would God fulfill his promise through her, this unassuming Jewess, hidden in the fabric of a broken world? The answer lay just beyond the next heartbeat. As Esther stood before the great and mighty king, her heart pounded with the drumbeats of uncertainty. She crossed the threshold into the throne room, the air thick with the weight of expectation. The golden scepter, emblematic of Ahasuerus' authority, rested upon his lap, a sign of both power and potential mercy. The eyes of the court were upon her, and she could feel their scrutiny prick like thorns against her royal robes. "Esther!" Ahasuerus proclaimed, his voice echoing against the marble pillars. What is your wish? It shall be given to you, even up to half of my kingdom. His gaze held an inviting warmth, an irony that twisted within her as she felt the cruel grip of Haman's decree tightening upon her people like a noose. Gathering her courage, Esther bowed low, and the assembly fell into a hushed silence. If it pleases the king, she began, each word a delicate prayer whispered into the vast expanse of fear, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet that I have prepared for them. The king's eyes sparkled with intrigue. Bring Haman quickly, he commanded, and the solemn atmosphere shifted, now infused with the unwitting essence of divine orchestration. As Haman entered, prideful and oblivious, Esther's heart skipped with the knowledge of the brewing storm. How could she transform the fate of her people with such ominous intent surrounding her? Yet, God's providence whispered through the cacophony, nudging her faith onward. At the banquet, serene yet tension-laden, Esther served wine and delicacies, drawing forth reveries of comfort amidst her unease. What is your request? The king asked once more. I will grant it, my queen. Let me find favor in your sight, O king, she replied, her voice trembling yet resolute. If I have found favor, let my life be granted me, and my people. The words hung in the air, palpable like the fragrance of the feast, yet stunning like a thunderclap. Who is he, and where is he, who has dared to do this? Ahasuerus' fury ignited, his brow furrowing as he shifted in his throne. Esther's pulse quickened, and she seized the moment, unveiling her true identity. An adversary and an enemy, this wicked Haman. The room gasped collectively, and the weight of fear was lifted only to be replaced by a more potent dread as Haman's visage blanched in realization. A silence lingered, charged with the impending judgment. Haman stumbled back, his scheming heart laid bare before the fiery gaze of the king. Here, at this moment, the intricate tapestry of God's providence unfurled. Esther's bravery had ignited a celestial confrontation, a duel of darkness versus divine deliverance. As Haman was taken away, a foreboding sense of justice unfurled. Mordecai's words reverberated in her mind, who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Esther's heart soared with the knowledge that this was a culmination of faith under pressure. Yet she pondered the unfolding of events, the irony of such a banquet bearing the weight of destiny. In the shadows of the court, whispers turned to shouts of confusion and anger, in the hearts of her people, a flicker of hope ignited. Yet, even as the decree against her kin faltered, what lay ahead remained veiled, never to forget that the battle was not won until deliverance was fully realized. But what she didn't know was that the kingdom would witness the turning of the tides, as God's sovereign hands moved through the life of a humble queen, orchestrating a plan that transcended the whims of men. The seeds of rebellion were sown, and a greater narrative awaited to unfold through her faithful obedience, a tale that would echo through the ages, interwoven with prophecies of deliverance yet unfulfilled. And as the evening shadows fell upon the great city of Susa, the din of the royal court rang with the aftermath of Esther's bold revelation. Haman had fallen from his lofty position, his schemes unraveled before the eyes of the sovereign. The king's anger flared like a consuming fire, and he commanded a quick reckoning for the enemy of the Jews. Hasten, and let the gallows be made, Ahasuerus cried, his heart burdened yet resolute, for Haman must pay for the treachery against my queen and her people. The guards moved swiftly, and in their haste, the sound of their boots echoed through the palace as they set about their morbid task. Meanwhile, Esther remained in the throne room, trembling yet steadfast, the weight of her people resting heavily upon her shoulders. She turned her face toward the Lord in silent prayer, searching for guidance, her heart echoing the words of her forefathers. I will stand in the gap, she whispered in the stillness, for my kin and my heritage. The king returned, his face a mask of fury, yet tinged with confusion. What have you discovered, Queen Esther? He demanded, his eyes searching hers for an answer that eluded the court. The tension swelled, a palpable force enveloping them both. Esther, emboldened by the Holy Spirit, summoned her courage once more. My lord, if it pleases the king, let the decree against my people be reversed. For they are my kinsmen whom you sought to destroy in ignorance. I implore you. Grant me a chance to save them. Her voice rang with the authority that God had bestowed upon her. Your people? Ahasuerus probed, brows knitting in perplexity. Explain this mystery. What do you mean by decree? Speak. In that moment, Esther opened her heart fully, the solemnity of the hour wrenching truth from her lips. My king, I am a Jew. And what Haman has plotted against my people is a vile betrayal, rooted in hatred and bloodlust. The gallows he made for Mordecai, a faithful servant of the king, were but a prelude to his greater plan. Tears brimmed in her eyes, glistening like jewels under the brilliant light of the candles. Ahasuerus' fury boiled anew, the fire of injustice igniting within him. What shall we do with this wretched man? He demanded of those gathered, a tide of emotion swelling within the court. Let justice be wrought swiftly, cried the officials, emboldened by the queen's courage. Let Haman be hanged upon the gallows he has prepared. It was decreed, and as the horrific fate of Haman was sealed, a palpable silence fell over the assembly, the air thick with a renewed anticipation of hope. All of heaven seemed to pause, poised on the cusp of a significant unfoldment in the providence of God. Esther, with her heart steadfast yet racing, understood that her advocacy had only begun. The king turned to her, his anger dissipating into concern, a protector's resolve emerging. What more do you ask, my queen? He implored, kneeling before her with an open spirit. Esther knew this was the moment to intercede fully for her people and to bring to light the peril precipitated by Haman's decree that was set to annihilate a nation of faith. Grant me time, O king, that we may assemble and fast, to petition the heavens for deliverance, she declared, her resolve strong and unwavering, for she knew all was woven into the tapestry of God's sovereign will. And thus, in the depth of desperation, a call to unity echoed through Israel. For the Lord's hand upon us is stronger than the hand of men, she proclaimed, embodying not just hope but the divine promise of transformation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land, Esther was but a humble queen with a profound understanding of her destiny, standing at the threshold of Israel's salvation. Unbeknownst to her, this was but the beginning, the whispers of prophecy stirring deep within, urging forth the revealing of God's faithful plan of restoration. What remained veiled heralded not only survival but divine favor to reshape the very course of history, all upon the obedience and courage of one woman for such a time as this. And it came to pass that the king, moved by Esther's fervent plea, summoned the scribes and commanded that new letters be written. In the name of my kingdom, he declared, let it be known that the Jews shall be protected from the wickedness of Haman and his decree. The letters were sent swiftly throughout the provinces, explaining that the Jews had the authority to gather and defend themselves against any who would harm them. The stamp of the king's seal pressed upon the parchment brought a clarity of purpose that washed over the people like a cleansing tide. Esther gathered her household together, her heart both burdened with responsibility and lifted by the promise of deliverance. They prayed as one, seeking the face of God and the favor of the King of Kings, believing that their steps were ordered by his divine will. Meanwhile, the news of Haman's downfall spread like wildfire. Fear gripped the hearts of those who had conspired against the people of God. For as surely as the king's edict spread peace, Haman's treachery sowed chaos and dismay among his allies. What has been done? They murmured among themselves, glancing nervously towards the royal palace. Is it possible that our fortunes have turned to ruin? Mordecai, clothed in sackcloth and ashes, heard of the decree yet smiled softly, his heart beat in rhythm with the promise God had sown into the very fabric of Israel's destiny. For the Lord is a refuge for his people, he proclaimed to the gathered mourners. Though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we will not fear, for our God is with us. The day approached when the Jews were to gather in every city to confront their enemies. In the dark recesses of their hearts, fear battled with faith, yet the stirring of hope began to radiate among them like a dawn creeping over the horizon. They assembled, fasting and praying as Esther had commanded, reflecting on the faithfulness of God who had promised to never abandon his people. And when the appointed day arrived, a great tumult arose within the city. The Jews, empowered by their newfound courage and divine favor, took up their swords and rallied together, a mighty force against those who sought to destroy them. The scriptures spoke of the joy in their hearts, echoing the song of Moses, singing praises to the God who fights for Israel. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. And in that hour, many turned in fear of the Lord, seeing his hand at work, and they began to tremble. The enemies of the Jews fell before them, for God was their battle standard. The very providence that once looked like despair was now a stream of miraculous victory. Esther stood among the people, a leader chosen in a time of need, emboldened by the Spirit. "Remember, dear ones," she proclaimed, "this is the Lord's doing, it is marvelous in our eyes." As the day passed, and the sounds of victory rang through the land, a shroud of uncertainty lingered. Esther, beset by a weight yet unfulfilled, continued to seek the heart of God, knowing a greater plan pervaded their deliverance. "Let us declare this day," she called, lying prostrate before the Lord, "that all may know the greatness of our God." For in this tumultuous hour, a whisper echoed in the recesses of her heart, an inkling of something even grander unfolding. And thus, the salon of providence drummed a rhythm that echoed not just for the deliverance of a people, but a revelation waiting to manifest. What greater work is the Lord preparing? She pondered, emboldened, standing as the divine bridge for her people's future. Little did they know, all was unfolding according to the sovereign promise, a divine tapestry woven to reveal not just survival, but a hope that would stretch beyond the confines of their understanding into the expanse of God's eternal purpose. The time would soon come to unveil the heart of God, and all creation would behold his steadfast faithfulness as he fulfilled every promise spoken over his people. And it came to pass that the days of battle dawned, the sun rising over the cities of Shushan and beyond, illuminating the faces of the Jews who had gathered boldly, the weight of their anticipation palpable in the air. They donned their armors, the glimmer of their swords reflecting the glory of the Lord as they remembered the covenantal promise made to their forefathers. "Prepare yourselves, for we are not alone," cried Mordecai, his voice a clarion call that echoed amongst the ranks. "The Lord fights for us. Let not your hearts be troubled, he has fought our battles before, and he will fight again." With renewed vigor, the Jewish people united, hearts knit together in faith and tenacity, fueled by a divine mandate bestowed upon them. In every province, the Jews had formed a resolute front, emboldened by the sovereign decree of their king. Armed with the knowledge that their lives were in God's capable hands, they advanced upon their foes. Those who had plotted against them found themselves entangled in fear and confusion, for the Lord had set a spirit of dread upon them. It was as if the shadow of the Almighty stretched over the land, reminding all that he was a consuming fire to those who defy his people. As the first skirmishes broke forth, a tumult arose throughout the kingdom, a clamor of hope and despair mixed in the air. The Jews called upon the name of the Lord, echoing the psalmist's cry, "Our help is in the name of the Lord, maker of heaven and earth." There was a spiritual ferocity that accompanied their efforts, for they engaged not merely with strength of arms, but with the faith that moved mountains. The tide of battle surged and fell like an ocean wave, but God's plan shimmered through the tumult. The counts of slain adversaries began to rise, and soon the balance tipped in favor of the children of Israel. A great dread fell upon the enemies of the Jews, who among them began to see the signs of divine retribution. "How can this be?" they wondered, "for is it not we who were to extinguish them?" Yet in the soul of Esther laid a growing resolve. Even in the throes of victory, she sensed that this was not the culmination of their deliverance, but merely the threshold of an even grander revelation. In the silence of her spirit, she called forth her maidens and sought wisdom through prayer. "What is it, O Lord?" she beseeched, her voice trembling but resolute. "What must we do to ensure that your light is not only triumphant but everlasting?" And as she prayed, a stillness enveloped her room, as if heaven itself paused to listen. In a moment infused with divine clarity, the Lord whispered unto her heart, revealing the next step in his sovereign plan. "This day shall not only mark the fall of your enemies, but the lifting of a great banner of salvation for generations to come. Take this victory, Esther, and etch it upon the memory of my people, so that they might tell their children and their children's children of how I rescued them from the hand of destruction." Inspired, she arose from her prayer, the burden of her spirit transformed into a declaration of hope. "Gather the people, share the stories, this victory shall be celebrated throughout the ages." And so she set forth a plan to institute a feast, a day of remembrance, ensuring that each heart would beat with the echo of God's great salvation in the years to follow. There was a profound shift unfolding, a destiny interwoven into the tapestry of history, revealing that the true power of their deliverance was just beginning. As she prepared her proclamations, the weight of a destiny unfathomable settled upon her. For even as they celebrated, she could sense that the fullness of God's purposes was yet afoot. Little did they know, the stage was being set not just for deliverance in their time, but for a glorious foreshadowing of a greater salvation still on the horizon, waiting to be unveiled when the fullness of time would come. What greater works would the Lord reveal through this thread spun from the loom of providence? And it came to pass that as the sun sank low in the sky, casting golden hues over the land, the cries of battle began to settle into a tensioned silence, heavy with the weight of what had transpired. The Jews of Shushan were emboldened by their victories, and in their hearts, the promise of God's deliverance rang clear. A fervent energy coursed through the air, mingling with prayers of gratitude offered unto the Lord, whose mighty hand had turned the tide. Mordecai, overseeing the aftermath of the conflict, called together the leaders and the people, his brow furrowed in contemplation. "Brethren," he proclaimed, his voice rising above the murmurs, "today, we have witnessed the faithfulness of our God. There is yet more to be done. The echoes of what transpired here must not fade as mere memories. We must ensure that this declaration of salvation is etched upon our very beings." And as the people listened, their souls stirred within them, for they understood that this was no ordinary victory, but a sacred act of God, unfolding a far greater narrative. Esther, filled with the Spirit, stepped forth, her heart aflame with the word imparted to her. "Let us gather our families," she declared, "and let this day be marked with feasting, rejoicing, and remembrance. We shall proclaim the wonders of the Lord to our children, that they may know the great deliverance He has wrought for us." Thus, Esther commanded the penning of letters to all provinces, the message swift and clear: "Establish a feast in the 12th month, a day of joy and gladness, where we celebrate our deliverance and recount the mighty acts of God." The people rejoiced at her proclamation, knowing that they would commemorate this day for generations. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world into twilight, a whisper rippled through the camp. Esther felt it in her spirit, a call to elevate their gaze beyond the temporal victories. "O Lord," she murmured in prayer, "what is the deeper purpose of this day? Illuminate our path, that our hearts may not grow weary nor forget." That night, as the stars shone bright as diamonds upon the dark canvas of the heavens, Mordecai and Esther gathered with the elders of Israel. They spoke earnestly about the promise of God to their forefathers, recalling the words of the prophet Isaiah, who proclaimed, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given." They pondered the weight of those words, entwining the story of deliverance with the hope of a coming salvation. In the secret chambers of her heart, Esther sensed the magnitude of God's unfolding plan, one that transcended their immediate deliverance. In that profound silence, she understood that the fight was not simply against an evil decree, but for the very fabric of their identity as God's chosen people, destined to shine His light in a darkened world. The night drew on, and as the first light of dawn began to break, illuminating the rooms where hearts were united in prayer, a revelation dawned like the morning sun. "O Mordecai," Esther whispered, "what if this day is not only for us, but a beacon for those who will come after us? A sign of hope that echoes through time?" Mordecai regarded her with solemn respect. "Indeed, dear queen," he responded softly, "though we have battled the darkness, it is the story of light that we are called to share. For the door of God's promise is ever open, what we carve in remembrance will serve the generations." As word spread among the people, an electric anticipation filled the air. A divine appointment was now at hand. They would not just celebrate their victory but would also weave a future filled with hope, paving the way for a greater salvation yet unknown. And in that moment, as they held each other's gaze, the truth hung heavy in the air. This victory was but a shadow, a precursor to a far more magnificent plan, a deliverance that not only spared their lives but would echo through eternity. Little did they realize that through their faithfulness, God's sovereign purposes would soon unfold a promise that spoke to the hearts of captives yet unredeemed. What new depths of His grace would the Lord reveal to those who chose to follow Him? And it came to pass that the following week, as the city of Shushan basked in the joyous glow of new beginnings, the winds whispered among the streets, carrying the seeds of hope far and wide. In every corner of the kingdom, the face of Esther shone like a beacon, her proclamation resounded in the hearts of all who heard. The spirit of unity was palpable, binding the people of Israel as one body, ready to proclaim the goodness of the Lord. Mordecai, with a heart overflowing with reverence, assembled the elders once more, gathering them under the shade of the ancient oak tree, where the whispers of the past swirled like leaves in the breeze. "Brothers and sisters, we stand on hallowed ground," he spoke, his voice trembling with conviction. "Let us establish a decree that shall withstand the test of time. This feast, known as Purim, shall remind us of our deliverance and the greatness of our God." The elders nodded in agreement, their faces alight with determination. They inscribed the edict, ensuring that every generation would recount the wonders that the Lord had performed, for Scripture spoke clearly, "And ye shall teach them your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." Deuteronomy 6 verse 7. Thus, the roots of remembrance would grow deep into the hearts of their children. Esther, acknowledging the weight of her responsibility, sought the Lord in the solitude of her chamber. "O God of our forefathers, mighty and merciful," she prayed, "grant me wisdom as I navigate the path you have set before us. May my actions shine brightly, not just for my people but for the world that lies in darkness." That night, as Esther lay restless upon her bed, a vision enveloped her, a tapestry of brilliant colors woven through the patience of time. In the corner, she beheld a child, born amidst stars and angels, emanating a light that pierced the shadows around. With each flicker of the flame, she realized this child was the promise of God, a figment of a future yet fulfilled, and within her soul stirred a profound understanding: their deliverance was but a signpost leading to a wondrous fulfillment in ages yet to come. The days turned into weeks, and as Purim arrived, the streets of Shushan resonated with joy, laughter mingled with hymns of praise echoing through the land, the sounds rising to heaven like a sweet incense. They feasted on delicacies and poured their spirits into the celebration, evoking the spirit of unity and gratitude for the deliverance from their enemies. But unbeknownst to them, the shadows of night still lurked beyond their borders. The whispers of resistance were not silenced. There remained those who would not accept the victory of the Jews. For in the hearts of some, hatred festered like an unhealed wound, and their eyes were set on revenge. Yet, through the looming threats, Esther and Mordecai stood resolute, declaring the words of the prophet, "No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper," Isaiah 54 verse 17. They knew, fortified by the knowledge of God's promises, that their faith was anchored in the eternal, transcending earthly troubles. As the celebration thrived, Esther felt the weight of her calling intensify. "What more, O Lord?" she whispered, her heart open to His guiding will. In a slow, dawning realization, she understood that the legacy they crafted in joy was woven into a fabric of redemption extending to nations unknown, clasping hands with a world desperate for hope. And in that sacred moment, the plan of God took a new shape in her vision. The trajectory of her people, their deliverance, and the unfolding tapestry of salvation would one day intertwine with the hearts of all nations. What wonderful mysteries lay ahead, waiting to be revealed in the arch of time. For in the delicate balance of heart and history, the hand of the Almighty meticulously orchestrated an unfathomable symphony of grace, one that would awaken generations to come. Would the echoes of this day resonate through ages, leading others towards that unimaginable light? As the sun set beyond the walls of Shushan, the echoes of laughter and songs of praise lingered in the air, yet within the hearts of some, a tempest brewed. The resolute joy of Purim clashed with the bitterness of hearts unyielding. For in the shadows, Haman stirred with restless ambition, his fury ignited anew. The very day of celebration had become a reminder of his dishonor and the thwarting of his plans. With vengeance and fury consuming him, he resolved to enact a decree that would shake the pillars of hope built by Esther and Mordecai. Gathering his confidants, he paced within the confines of his chamber, spitting out words like venom. "These Jews have mocked me, celebrating a deliverance that should have never been," he said fiercely. "I shall rise against them, and they will know the extent of my power." But just as Haman plotted, the Lord's whisper reached the heart of Esther, who rose early to seek guidance. Her spirit, still resonating with the day's joy, grew heavy as she sensed the stirring darkness beyond. "My God, what must I do? How can I guard the gift you have given?" She approached Mordecai, and their eyes locked with a shared understanding, igniting a flame of courage. "We shall not be silent before this peril," Mordecai proclaimed. "Let us gather the people. They must pray and fast, for our deliverance is at hand but requires the utmost faith." Esther nodded solemnly, for she understood the weight of their call. The people of Israel, emboldened by the Spirit of God, responded with fervor, filling the streets with prayers that ascended like incense. The night turned into a canvas of cries for mercy, and their faith pierced through darkness, echoing in the heavens. Meanwhile, in the grip of envy and deception, Haman sought the counsel of his closest advisers, each well-versed in the arts of intrigue. "Let us make a gallows, the tallest in Shushan," he commanded darkly. "And at first light, let Mordecai be hanged upon it. Let his end be a testament to all who would resist my might." His advisers, in the throes of ambition themselves, nodded in agreement. Yet unbeknownst to them, the king's heart was being stirred by a different whisper. That night, as the king lay restless upon his bed, the scrolls of his kingdom were brought forth, ones that chronicled the deeds of courage and betrayal. As he read of the thwarting of an assassination plot against him, a profound thought crossed his mind: what has been done for Mordecai? In that very moment, he woke with a start, calling for Haman, who entered with trepidation, unaware of the divine shift of the hour. "Haman," the king inquired, "if I desired to honor a man, how should it be done?" Haman, consumed by his own pride, thought in his heart that he was the one to be honored. "Let splendid garments be laid upon him, and let him ride upon the king's horse, paraded through the streets," he declared, envisioning himself in the grand display. "Then make haste," the king commanded sternly. "Do all that you have said to Mordecai the Jew." A wave of dread coursed through Haman as he turned to prepare the very honor for the man he sought to destroy, his heart sinking as he understood how the chess pieces of fate had shifted. Each breath, each act of obedience toward God's will was drawing nearer to the culmination of his sacred plan. Esther and Mordecai stood boldly at the precipice of a divine destiny intertwined with the heart of a nation. What remarkable twists awaited them, as the tapestry of God's providence wove ever tighter? How would the hand of the Lord illuminate the path ahead, revealing his sovereign design in the ages to come? As dawn broke over Shushan, a veil of uncertainty hung over Haman as he prepared to honor Mordecai, the very man he despised. His heart raced, for the gallows he had built stood tall and ominous, a shadow cast by his own wicked scheming. With each step, he recalled his tightening grip on power, but now, the echoes of his former might were drowned by the growing apprehension of humility. Mordecai, crowned with honor and dressed in fine royal garments, rode upon the king's majestic steed through the streets. The people marveled, and voices rang out in acclaim, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." The weight of praise felt foreign to Mordecai, yet he carried it, not for his own glory but as a testament to God's deliverance. His heart swelled with hope, for he understood that their prayers had been heard. As Haman performed the king's decree, he felt chained by the very honor he had conspired to deny. Bitter shame mingled with rage as he returned to his home. "What have I become?" he murmured to his wife, Zeresh, who had urged him to take down Mordecai. "I have become a servant to my enemy." Zeresh, struck by an uncanny fear, looked upon Haman with grave foreboding. "If Mordecai is of the seed of the Jews, you shall not prevail against him. You fall before him, and your doom is sealed, she warned, and Haman scoffed in disbelief, though a chill coursed through him, for she spoke as though she had glimpsed the oracles of fate. Across the city, Esther prepared her heart for confrontation, her spirit encircled by an urgency that pressed her to act. The time has come to reveal my identity. I must approach the king, she declared to Mordecai and the trembling remains of hope that gripped their assembly. The people fasted anew, seeking guidance and favor, their hearts knitted together in prayer. As Esther entered the king's chamber, the scepter extended toward her, a symbol of welcome and divine providence. Her breath quickened as she bowed low. "O king," she began, "if it pleases you, let my request be known." The king's brow furrowed in concern. "What is your wish, Queen Esther?" "It shall be granted, up to half my kingdom." With resolute courage, Esther unveiled her request. "O king, I am a Jew, and my people stand condemned for destruction by the wicked Haman. Spare us, I beseech you, for we have found favor in your sight." The king's face reddened with anger. "Who is he, and where is he that would presume to do such a thing?" Esther pointed a trembling hand toward Haman, whose heart sank and spirit quivered in dread. "Behold the man who plotted our demise!" Esther cried, and Haman's deceit was laid bare before the king. The very plot that sought to extinguish the flame of hope was now exposed in the light of truth. "Catch him!" commanded the king, and the guards seized Haman, whose arrogance crumbled into dust. Thence, he realized the depth of his folly. His rebellion against God's chosen people had been folly indeed. As evening fell, the king issued a new decree to counter Haman's wickedness, a testament to the overthrow of evil. The gallows erected for Mordecai became the end for Haman, the orchestrator of shadows turned to night. Across Shushan, a new celebration arose, transforming dread into joy. But even amidst the celebrations, the hearts of the Jews remained vigilant, for they knew their deliverance was not yet complete. Would they see the vanquishing of all they had suffered? As the laughter and tears mingled, a whisper of divine purpose rippled through the air. This was but the dawn of a greater revelation, where God's sovereign plan for his people was unfolding. Like the unfolding petals of a flower, mysteries lay just outside the reach of sight, prompting every heart to seek ardently the next chapter in his grand design. And it came to pass that the hearts of the people rejoiced, for they had seen the hand of God move mightily on their behalf. A day of deliverance had dawned upon the land, and as word spread of Haman's demise, the mantle of victory was draped upon the Jews of Shushan and beyond. The decree of the king echoed loudly, "Let it be known that the Jews shall not only survive but thrive, for the Lord fights for them." Mordecai, now adorned in royal vestments, stood with Esther, shoulders squared, united as sentinels of faith. "Let us not forget the weight of our deliverance," he proclaimed, raising his voice above the din of celebration. "This day shall be remembered and celebrated through the ages, that all may recount the greatness of our God." Esther nodded in solemn agreement, her heart brimming with gratitude and hope. "Let us proclaim the feast of Purim," she directed, her voice strengthened by the Spirit, "a time of feasting and joy, where we honor the eternal covenant of our God and the miraculous salvation he has wrought." As Esther and Mordecai began to establish the laws surrounding Purim, they called upon the people, and the streets of Shushan resonated with joyous shouts of praise. Families gathered in fellowship, sharing stories of God's faithfulness over banquets laden with cakes and wine. They recounted the moments of despair and the triumph that followed, filling their hearts and veins with shared identity, a tapestry of survival woven with threads of divine intervention. "So shall it be for generations to come," Esther proclaimed during one of the feasts, her eyes shining bright. "We shall tell our children, and they shall tell theirs, of how the Almighty saved us from the hand of destruction." The children, wide-eyed and innocent, listened intently, sensing the gravity of their heritage, echoing the faith that their ancestors had displayed. Days turned into weeks, and as the marks of celebration faded, the well of unity among the Jews deepened. Those who had once shivered in the shadow of sorrow now stood firm in victory, emboldened by purpose. In the midst of the rejoicing, Esther remained vigilant, praying continually for her people, inquiring of God for the next steps ahead. O Lord, she breathed into the night, you have brought us such great deliverance. What is it that you desire of us? And God answered as he had done before. Your purpose extends beyond deliverance, you are to be a light to the nations. Spread the news of my salvation, so that all may know my name and turn from their wickedness. Esther's heart swelled under the knowledge of such an imperative. She turned to Mordecai, spirit ignited with purpose. We must reach beyond the confines of our people. We must declare to all, elders and youth, to friends and foes alike, that the Lord is God and he is mighty to save. Mordecai nodded, understanding the summons they faced. Together, they sent messengers throughout the provinces, heralding the name of the Lord, urging every ear to listen carefully. For thus says the Lord, his mercy endures forever. His promises are real, shaping destinies, even amid trials. As the news of the God of the Jews spread, many who had once conspired against them began to reconsider. The fear of the Lord began to settle in hearts across the kingdom. Esther's courage and faithfulness set an example, igniting a spiritual spark among those who once scoffed at the God of Israel. What wonder is this, to witness such transformation? They whispered among themselves, speaking of the God who protects and provides. And so, the legacy of Purim echoed not merely as a moment of survival but a powerful testament of God's faithfulness. As the celebrations continued, Esther and Mordecai reflected upon the profound reality that their lives would serve as a bridge, not just for their own nation, but for people across distant lands yearning for hope. Thus, the days of commemorating deliverance turned into a divine calling. In the heart of Shushan, a burning flame of faith arose, one that could not be extinguished by the shadows of hate or fear. With renewed vigor and a shared mission, the people proclaimed with one voice, "We are a chosen generation, called out of darkness into his marvelous light." And as time flowed on, the joyous traditions of Purim continued, echoing through the ages and transforming lives, for every heart united in gratitude echoed the testimony that God indeed works wonders for those who trust in him. The chronicles of Esther and Mordecai left an indelible mark on history, a reminder that when we stand faithfully against oppression and fear, we place our feet upon the path of the divine. Through their story, generations were beckoned closer to the heart of God, which echoes forever. His loving kindness is upon his people, and his promises endure through all generations. And so, dear friends, let us rise and proclaim boldly, for we serve the God who saves, the God who provides, the God of hope. Now, as you have witnessed the wondrous acts of the Lord today, I invite you to be part of this unfolding story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories, for they will transform your life and faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, ensuring that his incredible truths reach far and wide. Comment below your spiritual reflections and how this biblical story impacted your faith, for your voice can uplift many others seeking divine light. And please share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Only true believers understand the importance of supporting biblical content through these actions to reach more souls for Christ.